everyone, my name is Serena, and today we're going to talk about the ancient regime. In the ancient regime, the society was divided into 3 estates. The first estate was the clergy. The second estate was the nobility. And the third estate was everyone else. More than 95% of the population was in the third estate. People were born into the second or third estate, and in general, they stayed in that estate for their whole lives. However, some people chose to enter the church and became priests, monks, or nuns. Another way to move up from the third estate was to get married to a noble person, but that was uncommon. Above the 3 estates was the monarch, who had absolute power. The monarch controlled all aspects of government and had the most privileges. The first state, the clergy, had many privileges too. The Catholic Church had its own laws, had large areas of land, and paid very few taxes. In exchange for these privileges, the clergy prayed for everybody in the kingdom. But not everybody was the same in the Catholic Church. On one hand, there was the high clergy, such as bishops, abbots, and abbesses. They were from noble families, and they were rich and powerful. But on the other hand, the low clergy, priests, monks, and nuns, were normally poor. And now I want to ask you some questions. Are you ready? First, how could you be part of the clergy? A, you had to be born in that estate. B, you could enter the church. Or C, you had to get married. The right answer is B, you could enter the church. And second, what proportion of people were in the first and second estates? A, around half of the population. B, around a third of the population. Or C, less than a fifth of the population. The right answer is C, less than a fifth of the population. The nobles also paid very few taxes. Some nobles had large areas of land worked by many vassals, who were people who rented land from a noble and had to obey him. Some other nobles had special jobs that only the second estate could do, such as generals in the army or ministers of the king. Finally, some nobles lived a life of leisure at the king's court. The main role of the nobility was to protect the kingdom and to advise the king. The third estate was a very varied group. The large majority were illiterate peasants and urban workers who lived in great poverty. A small group were artisans who had complex skills and jobs and lived with some comfort. A handful of rich and well-educated people were the bourgeoisie. They were the merchants, lawyers, bankers, etc. However, these people all had the same mission: to work to sustain the other 2 estates. So, they had no political power and had to pay far more taxes. During the 18th century, prices rose quickly, so the peasants and the urban workers could hardly survive. Parents often abandoned their children because they couldn't feed them. And now, before we finish, I want to ask you 2 more questions. First, did nobles work? A. No, because they all lived off of their land worked by the vassals. B. No, because they lived a life of leisure at the king's court. Or C. Some of them worked in special jobs that only the second estate could do. The right answer is C. Some of them worked in special jobs that only the second estate could do. And finally, what privileges did the bourgeoisie have? A. The bourgeoisie had no privileges. B. The bourgeoisie paid very few taxes because they were rich. Or C. The bourgeoisie had more political power because they were well-educated people. The right answer is A. The bourgeoisie had no privileges. This was a JJ production. I hope you enjoyed the video.